Emily took my Social Security check and flew off to Florida, leaving me with an empty fridge and unpaid bills. "Don't worry, Mom," she said with that calculated smile. "I'll be back in a week. Maybe by then you'll finally understand you can't live alone anymore." She wanted me desperate. She wanted me begging. She wanted me broken enough to sign whatever papers she brought back from her vacation. But I wasn't fine. I was hungry, confused, and starting to realize my own daughter was stealing my life. She came home sun-kissed and relaxed, expecting to find me grateful and desperate. "Mom, did you miss me?" she asked, opening my refrigerator to grab something to eat. "Are you ready to talk about that nice assisted living place now?" That's when she saw it. That's when everything changed. What I had done during her vacation wasn't begging for help. It was choosing myself for the first time in years. Greetings, dear friends. Before I share this story of betrayal and awakening, please show your support by subscribing and hitting that like button. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. It always amazes me how many of us have walked similar paths. Now, let me tell you what happened when my daughter opened that refrigerator door. Morning sunlight filtered through the narrow windows of Lily Carter's Mount Vernon row house. The radiators whispered their familiar song. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had grown cold hours ago. At 68, Lily had learned to measure time differently. Not by the clock on the microwave, but by the pills in her organizer. 7 compartments for 7 days. Each Sunday night, she filled them with the precision of someone who understood that forgetting could cost more than remembering. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. She had scrubbed the hallway again yesterday, though no one would visit to see it. Cleaning felt like dignity. It felt like choice. Her Social Security statement lay unopened on the counter. The envelope bore the familiar eagle logo, crisp and official. She touched the corner with her fingertip, then pulled her hand back. Some mornings, the mail felt like a test she wasn't ready to take. The phone rang. "Mom, it's me." Emily's voice carried that particular brightness that meant she wanted something. Lily could picture her daughter's face, 34 years old but still capable of that sweet smile that had charmed teachers and boyfriends since high school. "I'm at the hotel in Ocean City. The weather's gorgeous down here." Lily pressed the phone closer to her ear. She hadn't heard from Emily in 3 weeks. Now there was this call, this cheerful tone that didn't quite match the silence that had come before it. "That's nice, honey. Listen, Mom. I need a tiny favor. My bank card got flagged for some reason. You know how paranoid they are about travel purchases. Could I use your debit card for the hotel deposit? It's just a hold. They'll release it tomorrow." Lily's fingers found the edge of the Social Security envelope. She traced the government seal slowly. "I don't know, Emily. I don't like giving out my card information." "Mom, come on. I'm your daughter. You can trust me, right?" The words settled in Lily's chest like stones. Trust. Such a simple word. Such a complicated feeling. "I suppose. If it's just a deposit." "Perfect. I'll swing by later and grab it." "You're the best." The line went dead before Lily could change her mind. She stared at the phone, then at her reflection in its dark screen. The woman looking back seemed older than she remembered. When had the lines around her eyes grown so deep? She walked to the small drawer beside the sink. Inside, her debit card rested between her Medicare card and a folded shopping list from last week. Her fingers hovered over the plastic. The raised numbers caught the light, bold and permanent. Lily closed the drawer. The afternoon brought Emily to her door, smelling of expensive perfume and carrying energy that seemed too big for the narrow hallway. She wore a sundress that spoke of beach vacations and disposable income. Her smile was radiant. "Hey, Mom. You look tired." "I'm fine." Emily stepped into the kitchen without being invited. Her eyes swept the room, taking inventory. The pill organizer on the counter. The unopened mail. The refrigerator humming in the corner like a conversation partner. "So about that card?" Lily retrieved it from the drawer. Emily's hand was already extended, palm up, fingers slightly curved as if she'd been holding this pose for years. "Just for the deposit," Lily said. "Of course. Just the deposit." Emily slipped the card into her purse with practiced ease. She kissed Lily's cheek, leaving behind the scent of coconut and promises. "Call me if you need anything, Mom." Then she was gone, taking the energy with her. The house seemed smaller in her absence. Quieter. Lily stood in the hallway, listening to the radiators and the sound of her own breathing. That evening, she finally opened the Social Security envelope. The paper was crisp, official, cold to the touch. She read the first paragraph twice, then a third time. Her next payment would be $200 less than usual. Change in direct deposit information, the letter explained in neat, bureaucratic font. Lily set the paper down carefully, as if sudden movements might make the words rearrange themselves into something more pleasant. She hadn't changed any information. She barely understood how direct deposit worked, let alone how to modify it. She reached for the drawer again, muscle memory guiding her hand to the familiar spot where her Medicare card should be. Her fingers found empty space. The card was gone. Lily's heart beat faster. She searched the drawer thoroughly, lifting receipts and coupons, checking behind the salt shaker and under the placemats. Nothing. Maybe she had moved it. Maybe she had put it somewhere else and forgotten. At 68, forgetting was always a possibility. She hated that it was a possibility, but denying it wouldn't make it less true. She searched the kitchen systematically. Counter drawers, cabinet shelves, the space between the refrigerator and the wall. The Medicare card had vanished as completely as if it had never existed. Lily sat down at the table. The Social Security letter stared up at her, its official seal somehow accusing. $200 less. A missing Medicare card. Emily's sudden call and convenient request. The refrigerator cycled on, filling the silence with mechanical noise. Outside, a car door slammed. Someone was coming home from work, from dinner, from a normal day in a normal life. Lily folded the letter in half, then in half again. She placed it in the drawer where the Medicare card should have been. Tomorrow, she would call the Social Security office. Tomorrow, she would ask questions and demand answers. But tonight, she sat in her kitchen and wondered when her daughter's smile had started to feel like a warning instead of a welcome. The pill organizer caught her attention. 7 days, 7 compartments. Sunday through Saturday, morning and evening doses arranged with military precision. She had filled it 3 days ago, but now the Wednesday morning slot was empty. Lily's hands began to shake. She gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles went white. Someone had been in her house. Someone had taken her medication. Someone had access to things that should have been private, protected, hers alone. The radiators hissed their familiar song, but tonight it sounded different. Tonight, it sounded like secrets being whispered in a language she didn't want to understand. Lily stood up slowly. Her legs felt unsteady, but her mind was clear. She walked to the front door and turned the deadbolt. The click echoed through the hallway like punctuation at the end of a sentence she was finally ready to write. Tomorrow would bring phone calls and questions and the kind of conversations she had been avoiding for too long. But tonight, she would sit in her own house, behind her own locked door, and remember what it felt like to make decisions about her own life. The kitchen light flickered once, as if the house itself was trying to tell her something. Lily pretended she didn't see it, but she didn't turn away either. Some warnings, she was beginning to understand, were worth heeding. 3 days passed before Lily found the courage to call the Social Security Administration. She dialed the number printed on the letter, her finger trembling against each digit. The hold music was tinny and repetitive, interrupted every 30 seconds by a recorded voice promising that her call was important. Lily sat at her kitchen table, the phone pressed to her ear, watching the second hand move around the clock above the sink. 23 minutes. She had been waiting for 23 minutes to speak to another human being about her own money. Social Security Administration, this is Marcus. How can I help you? The voice was young, patient. Lily straightened her shoulders even though he couldn't see her. My name is Lillian Carter. I received a notice about my benefits being reduced. It says there was a change in my direct deposit information, but I never made any changes. She could hear typing on the other end. Quick, efficient keystrokes that spoke of familiarity with computers and systems Lily barely understood. Let me pull up your account, Mrs. Carter. Can you verify your Social Security number? Lily recited the 9 digits she had memorized 68 years ago. They felt strange in her mouth now, like a password to a life she wasn't sure belonged to her anymore. I see the change here. It was submitted online 3 weeks ago using your personal information. The request came from an IP address in Baltimore, which matches your address on file. I don't use computers. I don't even know what an IP address is. More typing. A pause that stretched long enough for Lily to hear her own heartbeat. The change was authenticated using your social security number, date of birth, and Medicare ID number. All the security questions were answered correctly. Lily's grip tightened on the phone. Someone had used her Medicare card. Someone had used information that only family would know. Someone had stolen pieces of her identity with the precision of a surgeon removing organs. Can you tell me what bank account the money is going to now? I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter. For security reasons, I can only confirm that a change was made. You'll need to visit a local office with proper identification to get more details. After she hung up, Lily sat in the silence of her kitchen. The refrigerator hummed its endless song. The radiators clicked and whispered. The house seemed to be having conversations without her. She opened the refrigerator and stared at its contents. A carton of milk with yesterday's expiration date. Half a loaf of bread. A jar of peanut butter that rattled when she picked it up, nearly empty. When had her shelves become so sparse? When had she started rationing food without noticing? The phone rang. Emily's face filled the screen of Lily's ancient flip phone. She had upgraded to a smartphone 2 years ago. One of those devices with video calling that made her feel simultaneously connected to and alienated from the world. Hey Mom, how are you feeling? Emily's background was all sunshine and palm trees. She wore oversized sunglasses that reflected the ocean, and her skin had the golden glow of someone with time and money to spend on herself. I got a letter from Social Security. They say my benefits are being reduced. Emily's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her sunglasses. A micro-expression that lasted less than a second but felt significant. Oh, that's probably just one of those scam letters. Old people get them all the time. They try to scare you into giving up your information. I called the number. It's real. Mom, you're probably just confused. You know how you get when you're worried about money. The words hit Lily like cold water. Confused. How she gets. As if her concerns were symptoms of a condition rather than responses to reality. I'm not confused, Emily. Someone changed my direct deposit information. Well, maybe the bank made an error. These things happen. Emily's tone was light, dismissive. She adjusted her sunglasses and looked somewhere off camera, as if this conversation was an interruption in a more important day. Emily, did you use my Medicare card for anything? The pause was brief but unmistakable. Emily's smile tightened at the corners. Why would I need your Medicare card, Mom? It wasn't an answer. Lily noticed that immediately. It was a question designed to make her question herself. It's missing from my drawer. You probably just misplaced it. You're always moving things around and forgetting where you put them. Always. The word stung because it carried the weight of pattern, of established truth. When had Emily started talking about her like she was a child who couldn't be trusted with her own possessions? Don't worry about the Social Security thing, Emily continued. It'll sort itself out. These government agencies make mistakes all the time. Just ignore it for now. The call ended with Emily's promise to check on her soon. Lily stared at the dark phone screen, seeing her own reflection fragmented across its surface. That evening, she walked to the small desk in her bedroom where she kept important papers. Her Medicare card should have been there, filed neatly between her insurance documents and her tax returns. Instead, she found a gap where it belonged, like a missing tooth in a smile. She did find something else, though. A brochure she didn't remember receiving. Harbor Haven Assisted Living. The cover showed elderly people playing chess and smiling at cameras, their lives apparently transformed into performance art for marketing purposes. Lily flipped through the glossy pages. Private rooms, medication management, 24-hour care, all the services someone might need if they were no longer capable of caring for themselves. On the back cover, handwritten in Emily's neat script, tour scheduled, Tuesday 10 a.m. Lily's hands began to shake. Tuesday was tomorrow. Emily had scheduled a tour of an assisted living facility without asking, without mentioning it. Without any indication that such a drastic change was being considered. She walked back to the kitchen and placed the brochure on the table next to the Social Security letter. Two pieces of paper that seemed to be having a conversation about her future without her participation. The silence in the house felt different now. Not peaceful, but predatory. Like something was watching her, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Lily opened her pill organizer and counted the remaining tablets. Several days' worth of medication were missing. Not just the Wednesday morning dose she had noticed before, but pills from multiple days. Someone had been taking them gradually, carefully, in a pattern designed to avoid detection. She thought about Emily's visits over the past few months. How her daughter always insisted on helping with the pills. How she would say things like, "Mom, you took your evening dose twice yesterday," or, "You forgot your morning pills again." How Lily had started to doubt her own memory because Emily sounded so certain, so concerned, so loving. What if Emily hadn't been helping her remember? What if she had been helping her forget? Lily sat down hard in her kitchen chair. The impact jarred her spine, but the physical discomfort was nothing compared to the realization spreading through her mind like spilled ink. Her daughter was stealing from her. Not just money, but memory. Not just possessions, but autonomy. Emily was dismantling Lily's life piece by piece, using love as camouflage for theft. The refrigerator cycled off, leaving the kitchen in profound silence. Lily could hear her own breathing, shallow and quick. She could hear the blood moving through her ears. She could hear the sound of her world shifting on its axis. Tomorrow, Emily would take her to tour Harbor Haven. She would speak to the administrators in that bright, concerned voice she used when she talked about Lily's condition. She would explain how her mother was becoming forgetful, how she needed more help than she was willing to admit, how it was time for professional care. And the administrators would nod sympathetically and quote monthly rates and talk about the waiting list. As if Lily wasn't sitting right there, as if her future was a transaction to be completed rather than a life to be lived. Lily stood up slowly. Her legs felt unsteady, but her mind was clearing. She walked to the front door and checked the deadbolt. Still locked. Still under her control. She returned to the kitchen and picked up the assisted living brochure. For a long moment, she stared at the smiling faces on the cover. Then she tore it in half. The sound was surprisingly satisfying. Cardboard separating along clean lines. A small act of destruction that felt like reclamation. She gathered the pieces and dropped them into the trash can beside the sink. They landed with a soft whisper, like secrets being buried. Tomorrow would bring the confrontation she had been avoiding. Tomorrow, she would have to look her daughter in the eye and ask questions that might destroy what was left of their relationship. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, Lily felt something other than confusion and fear. She felt angry. And anger, she was beginning to remember, could be a form of clarity. The kitchen light flickered once, twice. This time, Lily looked directly at it. Some warnings were worth heeding. Some signals deserved attention, and some daughters, she was learning, deserved to be told no. Tuesday morning arrived with gray clouds and the kind of Baltimore humidity that made everything feel slightly damp. Lily dressed carefully in her best blue dress, the one she wore to church and doctor's appointments. She wanted to look competent. She wanted to look like someone who made her own decisions. Emily arrived at exactly 10 o'clock, her rental car idling in the narrow street outside Lily's row house. She wore a blazer that said, "Responsible daughter," and carried a leather purse that probably cost more than Lily's monthly grocery budget. "Ready, Mom?" Lily wasn't ready. She would never be ready for this. But she nodded and followed Emily to the car, because sometimes the best way to understand a trap was to walk into it with your eyes open. Harbor Haven Assisted Living sat on a manicured lawn in Towson. All brick facades and welcoming porches designed to look like a country club rather than a place where people went to wait for death. Emily parked in a visitor's space and checked her makeup in the rearview mirror. "Remember, Mom, these people are experts. They know what's best for seniors." Experts. As if Lily's 68 years of living had given her no expertise in her own needs and capabilities. The lobby smelled like industrial-strength air freshener trying to mask something less pleasant underneath. A young woman in scrubs greeted them with the kind of smile that was clearly part of her job description. "Mrs. Carter, we're so excited to meet you. I'm Jennifer, the admissions coordinator." Jennifer's handshake was firm, her eye contact steady, her enthusiasm pitched at exactly the right level to seem genuine without being overwhelming. She had clearly done this many times before. "Your daughter tells me you're interested in our memory care program." Lily's blood went cold. Memory care. Emily had told them she had memory problems before they'd even met her. "I don't have memory problems." Jennifer's smile faltered for just a moment. She looked at Emily, who jumped in smoothly. Mom, you know you've been having some confusion lately. That's why we're here, to get you the help you need. The tour began in the common area, where residents sat in carefully arranged chairs watching a television mounted too high on the wall. Some stared at the screen with blank expressions. Others dozed in their wheelchairs. A few looked toward Lily and Emily with eyes that seemed to be asking for rescue. We have activities 7 days a week, Jennifer explained, her voice maintaining its professional cheerfulness. Arts and crafts, music therapy, reminiscence programs. Reminiscence programs, scheduled remembering for people who were presumed to be forgetting. They moved through the dining room, past tables set with plastic plates and cups designed not to break when dropped. The menu posted by the door offered pureed vegetables and modified diets for residents with swallowing difficulties. We handle all medication management, Jennifer said, gesturing toward a locked cabinet behind the nurse's station. No need to worry about missed doses or confusion. Emily nodded approvingly. That would be such a relief. Mom's been having trouble keeping track of her pills. Lily wanted to scream. She wanted to tell Jennifer that Emily was the one taking her medication, that the confusion Emily kept mentioning was manufactured, that this entire tour was built on lies designed to make imprisonment look like care. Instead, she asked, what if someone doesn't want to live here? What if they want to go home? Jennifer's smile became more practiced, more careful. Oh, adjustment period is normal. Most residents find that they're much happier here once they settle in. They feel safer knowing that help is always available. Safer. As if independence was a form of danger rather than a form of dignity. The room they showed her was small but clean, with a window that looked out onto the parking lot. A single bed, a dresser, a chair by the window. The space felt temporary, like a hotel room where the guest was never expected to leave. We encourage families to bring personal items, Jennifer said. Photos, a favorite blanket, small decorative pieces. It helps make the transition easier. Personal items, carefully curated remnants of a life that was being systematically dismantled. Emily was asking about costs and availability, her voice animated in a way that suggested she had already made this decision in her mind. She spoke about Lily as if she weren't standing right there, as if her preferences were symptoms to be managed rather than choices to be respected. When would you like to schedule the move in? Jennifer asked. Soon, Emily said. My mother's condition is getting worse. I'm worried about her safety. Lily's condition, her safety. Words that transformed autonomy into pathology, independence into recklessness. I'd like to use the bathroom, Lily said. Jennifer pointed down a hallway lined with handrails and emergency call buttons. The bathroom was institutional, all grab bars and non-slip surfaces, designed for bodies that could no longer be trusted to function without assistance. Lily locked the door and stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back seemed older than she remembered, more fragile. The fluorescent lighting emphasized every line and shadow on her face, making her look like someone who might indeed need care. Was she seeing herself clearly? Or was she seeing herself through Emily's eyes, through the lens of decline that her daughter had been carefully adjusting for months? When she returned to the admissions office, Emily was signing paperwork. The sound of pen on paper seemed unnaturally loud in the small room. We'll need to discuss financial arrangements, Jennifer was saying. The monthly fee is $3,800, plus additional charges for medications and personal care services. $3,800, more than Lily's entire Social Security check. Where would that money come from? Who would control the account? Who would make decisions about her care, her comfort, her basic human needs? That won't be a problem, Emily said. We'll set up automatic payments from her account. Her account. Emily spoke as if Lily's bank account was already under her control. As if the transition from independence to dependence was a financial transaction that had already been completed. On the drive back to Baltimore, Emily was chatty and optimistic. She talked about how nice the facility was, how professional the staff seemed, how much peace of mind it would give both of them. You'll make friends there, Mom. You'll have people to talk to all day. People. As if Lily were a social problem to be solved rather than a person who had chosen solitude over superficial connection. And you won't have to worry about cooking or cleaning or any of that stuff. They'll take care of everything. Everything, including the right to make choices about her own life. Lily stared out the car window at the familiar streets of her neighborhood. Corner stores where she had shopped for 40 years. Bus stops where she had waited on countless mornings. Sidewalks where she had walked through every season of her adult life. When they reached her house, Emily walked her to the door like she was an invalid returning from a medical procedure. Her concern felt performative, calculated to reinforce the narrative of decline and dependency. "Think about what we saw today," Emily said. "It's a good place. You'd be safe there." Safe. The word followed Lily into her house like an unwelcome guest. Safe from what? From the risk of living her own life? From the possibility of making her own mistakes? From the fundamental human right to exist in her own space on her own terms? That evening, Lily sat at her kitchen table and spread out the financial documents Emily had left behind. Harbor Haven admission forms, power of attorney paperwork, bank account signature cards with Emily's name already filled in. The papers told a story she hadn't consented to participate in. A narrative where she gradually lost capacity, where Emily gradually gained control, where assisted living became inevitable rather than optional. She found something else in the stack. A letter from Emily's lawyer about guardianship proceedings. Legal language that transformed love into ownership, care into custody. Lily's hands began to shake, but not from age or infirmity. From rage. Pure, clarifying rage at the systematic theft of her autonomy disguised as concern for her welfare. She stood up and walked to the phone. Her address book was exactly where she had left it, in the drawer beside the sink. She flipped through pages until she found the number she was looking for. Legal Aid of Maryland. She had seen their advertisements on television, their promises to help seniors navigate financial exploitation and family disputes. The phone rang twice before someone answered. "Legal Aid, this is Marisol." Lily's voice was steady when she spoke, stronger than she had expected. "My name is Lillian Carter. My daughter is trying to steal my life, and I need help getting it back." The words hung in the air like a declaration of independence. For the first time in months, Lily felt like herself again. Not the confused, declining woman Emily had been describing to everyone. Not the person who needed to be protected from her own choices. Just Lily, 68 years old, clear-minded, and finally ready to fight. The meeting with Marisol Vega was scheduled for Thursday afternoon at the Legal Aid office on North Charles Street. Lily dressed carefully again, choosing clothes that said, competent, rather than, victim. She wanted to look like someone worth believing. But Thursday morning brought Emily back to her door, unannounced and carrying coffee for two. She held the cardboard cups like peace offerings, her smile bright and concerned. "I brought your favorite, hazelnut cream." Emily had never brought her coffee before. The gesture felt like manipulation disguised as affection, kindness with an agenda. "We need to talk about Harbor Haven," Emily said, settling herself at Lily's kitchen table as if she belonged there. "I've been thinking about the move-in date." Move-in date. Not, if you decide to move in. Not, when you're ready. A date, as if the decision had already been made by people more qualified to make it. "I called them this morning. They have an opening next week." Next week. 7 days to dismantle a life, to pack 68 years into boxes that would fit in a single room. Designed for someone who was no longer trusted to live freely. "Emily, I haven't said I want to live there." "Mom, you saw the place. It's perfect for you. You'll have everything you need. Everything except choice. Everything except dignity. Everything except the right to fail or succeed on her own terms." "I'm not ready to give up my house." Emily's expression shifted, patience giving way to frustration. "Your house is too big for you. The stairs are dangerous. The neighborhood is changing." The stairs Lily had climbed every day for 30 years without incident. The neighborhood where she knew every corner store owner and bus driver and crossing guard. What if I fall? What if you have a medical emergency? What if something happens and there's no one here to help? What if? The foundation of fear that Emily had been building under Lily's life for months. What if scenarios designed to make independence look like recklessness, solitude like abandonment? "People my age live alone all over the world," Lily said. "Not people with memory problems." There it was again. Memory problems. The diagnosis Emily had assigned without consultation, the condition that justified every decision made on Lily's behalf. "I don't have memory problems." Mom, you lost your Medicare card. You forgot to take your pills. You got confused about the Social Security letter. Each accusation landed like a small blow. Emily spoke with the certainty of someone who had been documenting evidence, building a case, preparing for this moment. When resistance would need to be overcome. I didn't lose my Medicare card. Someone took it. Emily's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. The gesture was so brief that Lily almost missed it, but it was there. Recognition. Guilt. The micro-expression of someone caught in a lie. Who would take your Medicare card, Mom? The question was designed to make Lily sound paranoid. Who indeed? What reasonable person would suspect their own daughter of theft? You tell me. Emily's laugh was too bright, too quick. Why would I take your Medicare card? That's crazy. Crazy. Another word in Emily's vocabulary of diminishment. First confused, then memory problems, now crazy. I need to go out this afternoon, Lily said. Where? The question came too fast, with too much intensity. Emily was monitoring her movements, tracking her activities like a suspicious spouse. I have an appointment. What kind of appointment? Do you need me to drive you? Lily stood up slowly, using the motion to create physical distance from her daughter's increasingly aggressive concern. I can take the bus. Mom, you shouldn't be riding the bus alone. What if you get confused about which stop is yours? Confused again. Emily's default explanation for any action that threatened her control. I've been riding the bus in this city for 40 years. But you're older now. Things change. Things change. As if aging was a disease that affected judgment rather than a natural process that brought wisdom along with physical limitations. Emily stayed for another hour, asking questions about Lily's daily routine, her finances, her medical appointments. Each inquiry felt like surveillance disguised as conversation. When she finally left, Lily waited 10 minutes before looking out the front window. Emily's rental car was parked across the street, her silhouette visible in the driver's seat. Watching. Waiting. Lily went to her bedroom and changed into different clothes. A gray sweater instead of blue, a different purse, a scarf that would change her profile from a distance. She left through the back door, walking through the narrow alley behind her row house to emerge on a different street. The legal aid office occupied 2 floors of an old building downtown. The waiting room was full of people who looked like they had run out of other options. Elderly men clutching eviction notices. Young mothers with children who needed translators. People who had discovered that justice was not automatically available to those who couldn't afford to purchase it. Marisol Vega was younger than Lily had expected, with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that suggested she had seen enough exploitation to recognize it instantly. Her office was small but organized, every surface covered with carefully stacked files and legal documents. Tell me what's happening, Marisol said. Lily began with the Social Security letter and ended with the Harbor Haven tour. She described the missing Medicare card, the vanishing medication, the assisted living brochure with Emily's handwriting. She explained about the power of attorney documents she had never signed, the bank account changes she had never authorized. Marisol took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving steadily across the page. She didn't interrupt or ask for clarification. She just listened with the attention of someone who understood that every detail might be significant. This is financial exploitation, Marisol said when Lily finished. It's also emotional abuse. Your daughter is using your relationship to manipulate and control you. Financial exploitation. Emotional abuse. Words that gave names to experiences Lily had been trying to understand for months. Can you prove any of this? Marisol asked. Lily reached into her purse and pulled out the documents she had gathered. The Social Security letter, the Harbor Haven brochure with Emily's handwriting, bank statements showing transactions she hadn't made, phone records showing calls to services she had never contacted. This is a good start, Marisol said, studying the papers. But we need more. Documentation of the Medicare fraud. Evidence of the medication theft. Proof that the assisted living placement is against your will. More evidence. As if Lily's word about her own life wasn't sufficient to establish what was happening to her. The problem is that financial exploitation cases involving family members are difficult to prosecute, Marisol continued. Juries tend to believe that family members act out of love rather than greed. Judges often assume that elderly victims are confused rather than victimized. Confused. Even here, in an office dedicated to protecting seniors from abuse, Lily's credibility was qualified by assumptions about her mental capacity. What can I do? Document everything. Keep a journal of every interaction with your daughter. Record phone conversations if possible. Get copies of all your financial records. And whatever you do, don't sign any papers Emily brings you. Don't sign papers. As if Lily was a child who needed protection from her own pen. There's something else, Marisol said. I need to ask you directly. Do you feel safe in your home? Has Emily ever threatened you or made you afraid? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Had Emily threatened her? Not with violence, exactly. But with abandonment, with institutionalization, with the systematic removal of everything that made life worth living. She threatens me with care, Lily said finally. She threatens me with help. Marisol nodded as if this made perfect sense. That's one of the most common forms of elder abuse. Using the promise of care as a form of control. Care as control, help as harm, love as a weapon in a war Lily hadn't realized she was fighting. What happens if I fight this and lose? Lily asked. Then you end up exactly where Emily wants you anyway, Marisol said. But at least you'll have tried to save yourself. Save yourself. As if independence was something that had to be rescued rather than something that belonged to her by right. On the bus ride home, Lily stared out the window at her city. The neighborhoods she had watched change over decades. The buildings where she had worked, shopped, lived, loved. The geography of a life that was apparently no longer hers to navigate freely. When she reached her stop, she saw Emily's car in front of her house again. This time Emily was standing on the front porch, her posture suggesting impatience and irritation. Where were you? Emily demanded as Lily approached. I was worried sick. Worried sick. The language of love used to justify surveillance. I went downtown. For what? You didn't tell me you had any appointments. Tell her. As if Lily needed permission to move through her own life. I don't need to report my activities to you, Emily. Emily's expression hardened. Actually, Mom, you do. If you're going to keep living alone, I need to know where you are and what you're doing. For your own safety. For your own safety. The phrase that transformed freedom into selfishness, independence into irresponsibility. What if I don't want that kind of supervision? Then maybe it's time to seriously consider Harbor Haven. They have staff who monitor residents 24 hours a day. You'd never have to worry about anything again. Never worry about anything again. Including the right to make choices, the opportunity to take risks, the fundamental human experience of living with uncertainty and hope. That night, Lily sat at her kitchen table with a new notebook Marisol had given her. She wrote down everything she could remember about the conversation with Emily. The questions about her whereabouts. The threats disguised as concern. The way Emily's voice had changed when Lily challenged her authority. Documentation. Evidence. Proof that her own daughter was systematically stealing her life. The house was quiet around her, but it no longer felt peaceful. It felt like a building under siege, with enemies gathering outside and time running out to mount a defense. Lily touched the notebook's cover, her fingers tracing the spiral binding. Tomorrow she would begin the fight to reclaim her own life. Tomorrow she would start building a case for her right to exist on her own terms. But tonight, for the first time since this all began, she felt something other than fear or confusion. She felt like a woman with a plan. The memory came to her while she was washing dishes the next morning. Lily's hands were deep in warm soapy water when suddenly she was 28 years old again. Standing in a different kitchen with a different life ahead of her. It was 1983. Her husband Robert was dying by degrees in the hospital bed they had set up in the living room. The cancer had taken everything except his stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Emily was 4 years old then, small and fierce and utterly convinced that her daddy could be fixed with enough love and attention. Mama, why is Daddy sleeping so much? Emily would ask, climbing onto Lily's lap with picture books and sticky fingers. He needs rest to get better, sweetheart. But Robert wasn't getting better. He was disappearing piece by piece, leaving behind pain medication and insurance forms and bills that arrived daily like accusations. Lily remembered sitting at that old kitchen table, surrounded by Medicare paperwork she didn't understand. The forms used language that seemed designed to confuse, full of deductibles and co-payments and coverage limitations that made her head spin. Emily had been there that day, coloring in a princess book while Lily tried to decode the medical billing statements. The little girl looked up from her crayons and said, "I can help you read the hard words, Mama." Even at 4, Emily had wanted to help. She had moved her chair closer to Lily's and pointed at numbers with her small finger, sounding out letters with the confidence of someone who believed that effort could solve any problem. "That one says, paid," Emily announced proudly. "And that one says, balance." Lily had hugged her daughter then, grateful for the company in a task that felt too large and too important to handle alone. Now, 39 years later, Lily realized that Emily still saw her mother as someone who needed help reading the hard words. Someone who couldn't be trusted to understand important documents without guidance. Except now Emily wasn't offering to help decode the paperwork. She was hiding it entirely. Lily dried her hands on a kitchen towel and walked to the small desk in her bedroom. She pulled out the file folder where she kept important documents and spread them across the bed. Bank statements, insurance forms, tax returns from the past 3 years. She studied each paper carefully, looking for discrepancies she might have missed before. Most of the transactions seemed normal. Grocery stores, pharmacy, utilities. But there were other charges that didn't make sense. A payment to something called Senior Health Solutions for $400. Lily had never heard of that company. She didn't remember authorizing any payment for that amount. Another charge, this one to Metro Medical Billing, for $635. The date was from 2 months ago, right around the time Emily had visited to help organize Lily's medical records. Lily picked up the phone and dialed the bank's customer service number. After 15 minutes of automated menus and hold music, she finally reached a human being. "I'm calling about some charges on my account that I don't recognize," she said. "I can help you with that, Mrs. Carter. Can you give me the specific transaction dates and amounts?" Lily read off the information for both suspicious charges. "I see those transactions. Both were processed as automatic debit authorizations submitted online using your account information. I don't use online banking. I've never set up automatic payments for anything." There was a pause while the representative looked at something on her computer screen. "The authorizations were submitted using your full name, address, social security number, and account number. The requests came from verified devices that had previously accessed your account." Verified devices. Emily's phone, probably. Or her laptop. Devices that had gained access to Lily's account during those helpful visits when Emily had supposedly been organizing her mother's finances. "Can you tell me what these companies are for?" More typing. More pauses that stretched long enough for Lily to imagine her entire financial life being displayed on a stranger's computer screen. Senior Health Solutions appears to be a medical equipment company. Metro Medical Billing processes claims for multiple healthcare providers in the Baltimore area. Medical equipment, healthcare providers, services Lily had never received, bills she had never incurred, payments she had never authorized. Emily hadn't just stolen money from Lily's Social Security. She had been systematically billing Medicare and Lily's supplemental insurance for fake medical services, using her mother's identity to commit fraud on multiple levels. After she hung up with the bank, Lily sat on her bed surrounded by papers that told the story of a crime she was only beginning to understand. Emily wasn't just trying to control her mother's future. She was stealing from her present, using Lily's identity and benefits to fund a lifestyle her daughter couldn't afford on her own. The phone rang. "Hi Mom, it's me. How are you feeling today?" Emily's voice was bright and cheerful, the same tone she had used as a 4-year-old offering to help with the hard words. "I'm fine. Good. I wanted to talk to you about something. I spoke to the people at Harbor Haven again, and they're willing to hold the room for you until next Friday. But they need a deposit." A deposit. More money flowing from Lily's account to fund decisions she hadn't made. "How much?" $5,000. "It's refundable if you change your mind within 30 days. $5,000. The amount of money Lily lived on for 3 months. "I haven't said I want to live there, Emily." "I know, Mom, but I really think you should consider it seriously. Your memory is getting worse." "Your memory." Not, "You seem to be having some memory issues." Your memory, as if the problem was an established fact rather than Emily's convenient fiction. "What makes you think my memory is getting worse?" "Well, you forgot to pay the electric bill last month." And you've been asking me the same questions over and over. Lily hadn't forgotten to pay the electric bill. The payment had been mysteriously delayed, but she distinctly remembered writing the check and putting it in the mailbox. And what questions had she been repeating? When? In whose presence? Emily, are you the one who's been taking money from my account? The silence stretched long enough for Lily to hear her own heartbeat. What are you talking about? Senior Health Solutions. Metro Medical Billing. Companies I've never heard of, billing for services I never received. Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. You must be confused about something. Confused. Emily's universal explanation for any inconvenient reality. The bank says the charges were authorized online using my personal information. Well, maybe you signed something at a doctor's appointment. You know how these medical companies work. They sign people up for all kinds of services. Maybe. You know how. Emily's responses were becoming more defensive, more elaborate, more focused on deflecting rather than addressing Lily's concerns. I want you to come over, Lily said. I want to go through all my financial records with you. Together. I can't today, Mom. I'm still in Florida, but I'll be back Sunday, and we can look at everything then. Sunday. 3 days away. 3 days for Emily to prepare explanations, to move money, to clean up whatever digital trails she had left behind. Don't authorize any more automatic payments until we talk, Lily said. Of course not, Mom. We'll sort everything out when I get back. The call ended with Emily's promise to help sort everything out. Just like she had promised to help with the Medicare paperwork. Just like she had promised to help organize the bank accounts. Just like she had promised to help with everything else that was now missing, manipulated, or transferred beyond Lily's control. Lily walked back to the kitchen and sat at the table where she had first noticed something was wrong. The Social Security letter was still there, folded now but still visible, still accusing her of changes she hadn't made. She thought about that long-ago day when 4-year-old Emily had wanted to help read the hard words. How proud her daughter had been to contribute something useful to solving their family's problems. When had helping turned into controlling? When had love become indistinguishable from theft? Lily picked up the notebook Marisol had given her and began to write. She documented the phone conversation with Emily, the suspicious bank charges, the pattern of deflection and gaslighting that was becoming impossible to ignore. Documentation. Evidence. Proof that her memory was fine, that her judgment was sound, that the confusion everyone kept talking about belonged to someone else entirely. Outside, the afternoon sun slanted through her kitchen window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air like tiny witnesses. The house was quiet except for the familiar sounds of aging infrastructure pipes settling, radiators breathing, floors creaking under the weight of years. But for the first time in months, the silence didn't feel threatening. It felt like thinking space. Room to remember who she was before Emily started telling her who she was becoming. Lily was 68 years old. She had survived the death of her husband, the challenges of single motherhood, decades of making do with less than enough. She had read all the hard words herself for most of her adult life. She could read them now. Sunday came with autumn rain and Emily's rental car in the driveway. Lily watched from her living room window as her daughter sat behind the wheel for several long minutes, phone pressed to her ear. Even from a distance, Emily's body language suggested tension. Her free hand gestured sharply, emphatically, as if she were making a case for something. When Emily finally came to the door, she carried a briefcase Lily had never seen before. Professional looking. The kind of thing lawyers used to transport important documents. Hi Mom, sorry I'm a little late. Traffic was terrible coming back from the airport. Emily's smile seemed forced, her cheerfulness more brittle than usual. She set the briefcase on Lily's kitchen table with careful precision. I brought all the paperwork you wanted to look at. Bank statements, insurance forms, Medicare summaries. Everything's organized by date. Lily sat across from her daughter and watched Emily open the briefcase with theatrical efficiency. Inside were neatly labeled folders, color-coded tabs, documents arranged with the kind of obsessive organization that suggested preparation for scrutiny. Let's start with your bank statements, Emily said, pulling out a thick folder. I want you to see that everything is properly accounted for. Emily spread the statements across the table like a dealer shuffling cards. Each page was covered with highlighting and handwritten notes in Emily's neat script. Explanations for every transaction, justifications for every charge. See this payment to Senior Health Solutions? That was for the shower chair we ordered after you had that dizzy spell last month. Lily stared at the highlighted line. $400 for a shower chair she had never received, never used, never needed. I don't have a shower chair. Yes, you do, Mom. It's in your bathroom closet. The white plastic one with the handles. Emily spoke with the patience of someone explaining something obvious to someone who was failing to grasp it. But Lily knew her own bathroom. She knew what was in her own closet. Emily, there's no shower chair in my bathroom. Let me show you. Emily stood up and headed toward the hallway, expecting Lily to follow. They walked together to the small bathroom at the end of the hall, where Emily opened the linen closet with a flourish. There, on the bottom shelf, was a white plastic shower chair still in its original packaging. Lily stared at it, her mind racing. The chair hadn't been there last week. She was certain of that. She used this closet regularly, storing towels and toilet paper and cleaning supplies. She would have noticed a large box taking up half the bottom shelf. When did you put this here? Lily asked. I didn't put it anywhere, Mom. You asked me to help you order it, remember? We talked about how important it was for you to have something safe to sit on in the shower. Emily's tone was gentle but firm, the voice of someone who had learned to manage a difficult relative with kindness and patience. But Lily didn't remember asking for a shower chair. She didn't remember having dizzy spells. She didn't remember any conversation about bathroom safety. I don't remember ordering this. That's what I'm worried about, Mom. You're forgetting more and more things. Important things. They returned to the kitchen, where Emily continued her presentation with the methodical thoroughness of someone who had practiced this performance. Each questionable charge had an explanation. Each suspicious transaction had supporting documentation. Metro Medical billing was for blood work that Lily's doctor had ordered. Emily produced a lab requisition form with Lily's signature at the bottom. Lily examined the signature carefully. It looked like hers, but something about it felt wrong. The loops were too rounded, the pressure too consistent. It looked like someone had traced her signature rather than writing it naturally. I don't remember having blood work done. It was back in August, Mom. Dr. Peterson wanted to check your vitamin levels because you were complaining about fatigue. Emily pulled out another folder and extracted what appeared to be medical records. Test results showing low vitamin D and B12 levels. A doctor's note recommending nutritional supplements. Lily stared at the papers. They looked official, legitimate, complete. But she had no memory of any medical appointment in August. She remembered her routine checkup in June, but nothing after that. These aren't from my doctor, Lily said. Yes, they are. Look at the letterhead. Peterson Family Practice. The letterhead was correct. Dr. Peterson's name, address, phone number, all properly formatted. But something about the layout seemed off. The fonts didn't quite match. The spacing was irregular in subtle ways that suggested the documents had been assembled rather than generated. Emily, I want to call Drive. Peterson's office. Mom, it's Sunday. They're closed. I'll call tomorrow. Emily's expression flickered, just for a moment. A micro-expression that suggested she was calculating something, weighing options, preparing for a development she hadn't anticipated. Of course. Call them if it will make you feel better. But I think you'll find that everything is exactly the way I've explained it. Emily's confidence was unsettling. Either she was telling the truth and Lily was experiencing memory problems more severe than she had realized. Or Emily had created an elaborate system of fake documentation to support her story. They continued through the financial records for another hour. Emily had an explanation for everything. She produced receipts, authorization forms, insurance documents. She had built a paper trail that supported every suspicious transaction. But the explanations required Lily to accept that she was forgetting significant events. Doctor visits, medical procedures, purchases, conversations. If Emily was telling the truth, then Lily's memory was deteriorating at an alarming rate. I'm worried about you, Mom, Emily said as she packed the documents back into her briefcase. The fact that you don't remember any of these things. It's concerning. Concerning. The word hung in the air like a diagnosis. Maybe we should schedule an appointment with a neurologist. Get some cognitive testing done. Cognitive testing. Emily was steering the conversation toward medical confirmation of the memory problems she kept insisting Lily was experiencing. And in the meantime, Emily continued, I really think Harbor Haven would be the safest option. They have specialized staff who work with people who have memory issues. Memory issues. The phrase that Emily used to justify every decision she wanted to make on Lily's behalf. After Emily left, Lily sat alone in her kitchen and tried to make sense of what she had seen. The documentation was extensive, professional-looking, convincing. If Emily had fabricated it all, she had done so with remarkable skill and attention to detail. But Lily trusted her own memory more than she trusted Emily's paperwork. She remembered her daily routine, her medical appointments, her financial decisions. She remembered being competent and autonomous until very recently. She walked back to the bathroom and stared at the shower chair in its unopened package. Had she really forgotten ordering it? Was her memory really so unreliable that she could lose entire days without noticing? Or had Emily placed it there recently, along with fake documentation to support the fiction that Lily had requested it? Lily returned to the kitchen and picked up her notebook. She wrote down everything she could remember about the conversation with Emily. The explanations that felt rehearsed. The documents that looked almost but not quite right. The way Emily had seemed prepared for every question. Tomorrow she would start making phone calls. She would verify Emily's claims, check the authenticity of the documents, confirm or debunk the medical records that supposedly proved her declining capacity. But tonight, she sat in her own kitchen and wondered if she could trust her own mind to tell her the truth about her own life. The doubt felt like poison spreading through her thoughts. Was this how it started? This questioning of her own perceptions, this uncertainty about her own memories? Was this how people lost themselves not all at once, but by degrees, one forgotten conversation at a time? Lily closed the notebook and placed it in the drawer beside her sink. Tomorrow would bring answers. Tomorrow would prove who was telling the truth. But tonight, for the first time since this all began, Lily wondered if she was losing more than just money and independence. She wondered if she was losing her mind. The house settled around her, familiar creaks and sighs that had provided comfort for 30 years. But even the familiar sounds seemed different now. Less like home, more like evidence in a case she wasn't sure she could win. Monday morning brought clarity the way sunrise brings light gradually, then all at once. Lily woke early and made a list of phone calls she needed to make. Dr. Peterson's office first, then the bank, then Medicare. She would verify Emily's claims systematically, methodically, until she had proof of what was real and what was fabrication. Dr. Peterson's receptionist answered on the second ring. Peterson Family Practice, this is Carmen. This is Lillian Carter. I need to verify some medical records. My daughter says I had blood work done in August, but I don't remember the appointment. Carmen's typing was audible through the phone. Let me check your file, Mrs. Carter. When did you say this was? August. For vitamin deficiency testing. More typing. A pause that stretched longer than it should have. Mrs. Carter, I'm not showing any appointments for you in August. Your last visit was in June for your annual physical. Lily's grip tightened on the phone. Are you sure? The records show test results from Dr. Peterson's office. I'm looking at your complete file. No blood work orders in August. No vitamin testing. Would you like me to check with Dr. Peterson? Maybe there's some confusion. But this time, the confusion belonged to Emily, not to Lily. Yes, please. I'll hold. 5 minutes later, Carmen returned to the line. Dr. Peterson confirms that we haven't seen you since June. He's concerned about these medical records you mentioned. Would you like to schedule an appointment to discuss this? Lily scheduled the appointment for Thursday, then immediately called the bank's fraud department. The representative who answered was more helpful than the customer service agent she had spoken with before. Mrs. Carter, I see you've been asking about suspicious charges on your account. I can tell you that both Senior Health Solutions and Metro Medical Billing have been flagged by our fraud detection system. Multiple customers have reported unauthorized charges from these companies. Flagged by fraud detection. Emily hadn't just stolen from Lily, she had participated in a broader scam that was sophisticated enough to trigger bank security systems. Can you tell me when these charges were authorized? The authorizations came through on August 15 and September 3. Both were submitted using online banking credentials during logged-in sessions from registered devices. August 15, the day Emily had visited to help organize Lily's medical records. The day she had spent hours alone with Lily's computer while Lily napped in the afternoon. I need to file a formal fraud report, Lily said. I can start that process for you right now. The Medicare fraud hotline was busier, but equally helpful once Lily finally reached a human being. The representative explained that identity theft involving Medicare was increasingly common, especially cases where family members used their relatives' information to bill for fake medical services. We can flag your account and investigate any suspicious claims, the representative said. But I need to warn you that these cases can be complicated when family members are involved. Complicated because families were supposed to protect each other, not prey on each other. Complicated because love was supposed to be about care, not control. By noon, Lily had filed formal complaints with the bank, Medicare, and the Social Security Administration. She had documentation proving that Emily's medical records were fake, that the charges to her account were fraudulent, and that the pattern of theft had been ongoing for months. But she still needed to confront Emily directly. She needed to hear her daughter explain how love had turned into larceny. Emily arrived that afternoon without being invited, letting herself in with the key Lily had forgotten she still had. She carried flowers, yellow roses that smelled like apology, and wore the expression of someone who had come to deliver difficult news. Mom, we need to talk. I've been doing some research about memory care facilities, and I think we need to move quickly. Memory care facilities. Emily was escalating her campaign, moving from assisted living to specialized dementia care. I've been making some phone calls too, Lily said. Emily set the flowers on the counter and turned to face her mother. Something in Lily's tone must have warned her that this conversation would be different from the others. Dr. Peterson says I haven't been to his office since June. The bank says the charges on my account are part of a known fraud scheme. Medicare is investigating identity theft claims filed using my information. Emily's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, calculation, then something that looked almost like relief. As if she had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it. Mom, I can explain all of this. Please do. Emily sat down across from Lily at the kitchen table, her posture shifting from casual to defensive. You've been having problems for months. Serious problems. You forget appointments, you repeat the same questions over and over, you get confused about money. The same accusations Emily had been making for weeks, but now Lily heard them differently. Not as observations, but as scripts. Lines rehearsed for this exact situation. The medical records, Emily continued, I created those because I was trying to get you the help you need. Sometimes you have to document problems that people won't admit they have. Created medical records. Emily was confessing to forgery while calling it help. And the money? I've been paying for services you need but won't accept. Home health aides, medical equipment, consultations with geriatricians. I knew you'd refuse to pay for them yourself. Paying for services by stealing Lily's money to fund fabricated bills for care she had never received. Emily, that's fraud. That's theft. It's not theft when I'm trying to take care of you. Emily's voice was rising, her careful composure beginning to crack. You're sick, Mom. You need help, and you're too stubborn to accept it. Sick. The diagnosis Emily had assigned without consultation, the condition that justified every violation of Lily's autonomy. I'm not sick. You've been gaslighting me for months, making me doubt my own memory so I'd accept your control. Gaslighting. Emily's expression shifted again, this time to something that looked like genuine anger. I've been protecting you from yourself. Do you know what happens to people your age who live alone? They fall and die on their bathroom floors. They forget to turn off stoves and burn their houses down. They become victims of scams because they're too confused to recognize them. People your age. As if turning 68 automatically transformed competence into incompetence. You became the scam, Lily said quietly. Emily stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Fine. You want to live alone and pretend you're fine? Do it, but don't call me when you fall down those stairs. Don't call me when you can't remember where you are or what day it is. Don't call me. The threat Emily had been implying for months, finally spoken out loud. Accept my control or lose my love. I won't call you, Lily said. I don't trust you anymore. The words hung between them like a verdict. Emily's face crumpled, but Lily couldn't tell if the emotion was genuine grief or performed devastation. You're going to regret this, Emily said. When you're sitting in some state-run facility because you can't take care of yourself anymore, remember that I tried to help you. State-run facility. Emily's final threat, the consequence for rejecting her version of care. Emily left without the flowers, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Lily heard her car start in the driveway, heard the engine rev with unnecessary aggression. Heard the tires squeal as Emily drove away from 34 years of mother-daughter relationship. The silence that followed was profound. Not peaceful, exactly, but clean. Honest. The kind of quiet that came after truth had been spoken and consequences accepted. Lily walked to the kitchen window and watched her neighborhood settle into evening. Lights came on in houses where families were gathering for dinner, for homework help, for the ordinary dramas of functional relationships. She had lost her daughter today. Not to death or distance, but to greed disguised as love. Emily would probably never forgive her for refusing to be victimized. That forgiveness had been conditional on Lily's willingness to surrender her autonomy. But she had gained something too. She had reclaimed her own reality. Her memory was fine. Her judgment was sound. Her capacity to live independently was intact. Lily picked up the phone and called Marisol at Legal Aid. It's done, she said when Marisol answered. I confronted her. She admitted to everything, the fake medical records, the fraudulent charges, all of it. Did you record the conversation? Lily had forgotten about documentation in the emotional intensity of the confrontation. No, but I have the other evidence. The bank records, the Medicare investigation, the verification from Dr. Peterson. That should be enough to establish a pattern of financial exploitation. Are you ready to file a restraining order? A restraining order against her own daughter. Legal protection from someone who had once been small and fierce and utterly convinced that love could solve any problem. Yes, Lily said. I'm ready. The house settled around her as she ended the call. Familiar sounds of aging infrastructure, but tonight they sounded like home again rather than evidence in a case she was fighting to win. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and court filings and the formal end of a relationship that had been dying by degrees for months. But tonight, Lily sat in her own kitchen, in her own house, making her own decisions about her own life. It felt like freedom. It felt like dignity. It felt like coming home to herself after a long journey through someone else's version of who she was supposed to be. The flowers Emily had brought were still on the counter, yellow roses that had been intended as manipulation disguised as affection. Lily picked them up and dropped them into the trash can beside the sink. Some gifts, she was learning, were too expensive to accept. 3 months later, Lily's mornings looked different. She woke to sunlight filtering through clean windows, coffee brewing in a pot that belonged entirely to her, silence that felt like peace rather than threat. Her pill organizer sat on the counter, filled by her own hands according to her own schedule, each compartment a small declaration of independence. The restraining order had been granted without contest. Emily had left Baltimore altogether, moving to Phoenix where she couldn't accidentally encounter the mother she had tried to systematically dismantle. The distance felt appropriate. Some relationships needed geography to heal, and some needed geography to end. Lily's bank account had been restored, the fraudulent charges reversed, the automatic payments cancelled. Medicare had flagged her file for extra security monitoring. Dr. Peterson had provided a comprehensive cognitive assessment that confirmed what Lily had known all along: her memory was normal for her age. Her judgment was sound, and her capacity to live independently was intact. The house felt larger now, somehow. Not because anything had changed physically, but because it belonged completely to her again. She could leave dishes in the sink if she felt like it. She could take afternoon naps without explaining them to anyone. She could choose not to answer the phone when it rang. Choice. Such a simple word for such a powerful concept. On Tuesday mornings, Lily volunteered at the senior center, helping other older adults navigate Medicare paperwork and Social Security benefits. She had become something of an expert on financial exploitation, sharing her story with people who needed to hear that they weren't alone, that confusion wasn't always medical, that family members could be predators too. The hardest part, she would tell them, is recognizing that love and abuse can look very similar from the inside. Both involve people making decisions about your life. Both involve people claiming to know what's best for you. The difference, she had learned, was consent. Love asked permission. Abuse assumed authority. Today she was helping Margaret Thompson, a 73-year-old woman, whose son had been pressuring her to sell her house and move to Florida where he could keep an eye on her. "He says I'm too old to live alone," Margaret said, her voice small with uncertainty. "Maybe he's right. Maybe I should listen to him." Lily looked at Margaret carefully. Alert eyes, steady hands, clear speech. Nothing to suggest cognitive decline except her son's insistence that she was failing. "Are you happy in your house?" Lily asked. "I love my house. I've lived there for 40 years. All my memories are there." "Do you feel safe there?" "Completely. I know all my neighbors. The mailman checks on me. The grocery store delivers." "Then why does your son think you need to move?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "He says my neighborhood is going downhill. He says the house is too big for me. He says he worries about me all the time." Worry. The emotion that justified every boundary violation, every decision made without consultation, every gradual theft of autonomy disguised as care. "Margaret," Lily said gently, "whose worry is more important? His worry about your choices, or your worry about losing your independence?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Margaret stared at her hands, then slowly raised her eyes to meet Lily's. "I never thought about it that way. You get to choose whose feelings matter most in decisions about your own life." Margaret left that afternoon with information about elder law attorneys and a phone number for legal aid. Whether she would use the resources or surrender to her son's pressure remained to be seen. But at least she knew she had options. That evening, Lily sat at her kitchen table and wrote in the journal she had started keeping after the restraining order was granted. Not documentation for lawyers this time, but reflection for herself. A record of days that belonged entirely to her. The Medicare card sat in its proper place in the drawer beside the sink. The Social Security checks arrived on schedule, deposited into an account that only she could access. The pill organizer held the right medications in the right quantities, managed by the only person qualified to make decisions about her health. Sometimes she thought about Emily. Brief, sharp memories that came without warning. The 4-year-old who had wanted to help read the hard words. The teenager who had rolled her eyes at everything. The young adult who had seemed genuinely caring before caring became controlling. The grief was complicated. She mourned the relationship they had never really had, the mother-daughter bond that should have been built on mutual respect rather than assumed authority. She mourned the daughter Emily might have been if she hadn't confused love with ownership. But she didn't miss the fear. She didn't miss the doubt. She didn't miss the daily erosion of her confidence in her own perceptions. The phone rang. Lily glanced at the display and saw a number she didn't recognize. 6 months ago, she would have answered automatically, reflexively, because not answering might be rude or might miss something important. Now she let it ring. Unknown numbers could leave messages. Important calls would be persistent. Her peace of mind was more valuable than her accessibility. The house settled around her with the familiar sounds of aging infrastructure. But tonight, every creak and whisper sounded like home. Like safety. Like a place where a 68-year-old woman could live on her own terms without apology or explanation. Lily closed her journal and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices, new opportunities to practice the art of living independently. Some days would be harder than others. Some decisions would be mistakes. Some moments would be lonely. But they would all be hers. She turned off the kitchen light and walked through her house. Checking locks that protected space that belonged to her, turning off lamps that illuminated rooms where she made her own rules. In her bedroom, she set out clothes for tomorrow's volunteer work at the senior center. Another day of helping people recognize that they had choices. That age didn't automatically equal incompetence, that family love shouldn't require surrendering autonomy. As she settled into bed, Lily thought about the woman she had been 6 months ago. Confused, frightened, doubting her own memory and judgment. Convinced that love meant accepting other people's decisions about her life. That woman felt like a stranger now. Someone she had been briefly, during a difficult period, but not someone she was destined to remain. The house was quiet around her, but it no longer felt empty. It felt full of possibilities. Full of tomorrow's choices and yesterday's lessons learned. Life, Lily thought as sleep began to claim her, doesn't end just because it breaks once. What falls apart can be the very place where we learn to stand again. If this story gave even a small moment of strength to someone out there, then everything she went through means something today. Some people might hear this and remember their own struggles with family members who confused love with control. Others might recognize the signs of financial exploitation in their own lives. A few might find the courage to ask for help, to trust their own perceptions, to refuse to be protected into powerlessness. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe, and share a piece of your own story in the comments below. Your words might become the seed of the next chapter we create together. Thank you for spending